All right, so we are now going to look at doing watercolor washes with textures. And so we're going to use a couple of different techniques to add texture to our watercolor wash. So first, I'm going to do just a gradient wash here, just regular old gradient wash like we've been doing. So I'm going to mix some water in with my purple. And then mix them with my blue also. Let me get my purple, and I'm just going to do a I'm going to do a purple to blue kind of gradient. So I'm just trying to make sure I get it spread across everything. And just like my other washes, I want to make sure that I'm moving quickly because I don't want this all to get dry before I get my stuff on there that's actually going to make this texture. So here we go. And so again, just like with the other washes, I'm kind of sweeping color across the entire page at once. And now, really quickly, before it dries, I'm going to take this piece of saran wrap. And this is going to put a really cool texture on here. So first, I'm just putting my saran wrap on the page, and then I am crinkling it and crumpling it. For every wrinkle I have in my saran wrap, I am going to get a cool little bit of texture onto my sheet. Now, the really important thing here, and the thing that I see students struggle with the most, is their paper is too dry when they're putting that saran wrap on there. It has to be wet because we want the water to stick to the plastic. That is the entire reason why this works, is that the water is kind of pulled around by the plastic because the water will stick to that plastic. So if this is dry, the plastic won't do anything. But if it is still wet, this will work really well. And it's going to give you a texture. Let me see. I have it here somewhere. Yes, like that. So this is the kind of texture you get from that. So every one of these light little areas, that's where the plastic was wrinkled. So I'm going to get the same sort of texture here in this, but I have to let this dry just like this. So until this is dry, that plastic is going to stay on there. And if I'm doing this in my sketchbook, I will just close my sketchbook and leave it just like that with the plastic on there until it's completely dry. Now, that's one texture trick. Now, I wanted to share one more with you. And we're going to do, I think, green and blue for this one. Excuse me. I'm going to start this off the same way. I'm going to do a gradient wash. And again, I'm trying to move quickly, making sure I have color edge to edge, and that I am working quickly so that this does not all dry before I am ready for it to. It's not quite as crucial as with the plastic. It doesn't have to be quite as wet with this as it does with the plastic, but yeah, it doesn't hurt either. So got my green on there. So I went down with my green, and now I can go up with my blue. Okay, so now I've got my gradient here. It's all still wet. And now I'm going to take a little bit of this. This is kosher salt. I think this is pickling salt. But the point is, these little grains of salt are not little. They're pretty big pieces of salt. And that's what we want. So I'm just going to sprinkle this on here. Again, you want this to still be wet. And there we go. Now, in this example, I'm kind of sprinkling it all over, but you could certainly do one where you're only going to have, the salt in one area, or maybe have it be like really concentrated in one area, and then as you move out, it becomes less and less concentrated. And those things could be really cool effects. So there are different ways to use these. Um, And I just want to show you, I don't know how well you can see that, but so if you look in some of these areas, you can see where the salt has changed color. It's no longer white. And what's happened there is that the water is the salt is soaking up the water. So we're going to have a lighter, like a faded little spot wherever there is a grain of salt because it is soaking in the water and our color is in the water, right? Hence watercolor. So this is going to give us kind of a spotty sort of an appearance. And let me see if I have an example that is dry that I can show you because I have to let this dry completely before I brush away the salt. Like you want to brush the salts away the next day. You don't want to try to do it immediately. Okay. So I think, oh, no, that is spraying alcohol. That's not salt. This is an example. So here, you can see here where we have lots of little white spots making up this texture. Those are all from grains of salt. So I'm going to let this dry completely, like come back the next day and then brush away the salt. And that is it. So those are two tricks to try to, not to try, but those are two tricks to give a watercolor background a little bit of extra texture. And you can do one or the other, you can do both. Or you can experiment with other things. Like you can actually get this same effect by using rice. If you wanted to have larger spots, larger faded spots, and you don't mind them being a little elongated, grains of rice will do the exact same thing, except that they are obviously much larger than a piece of salt. So there are